got a Triple G logo.
Yeah.
So that's a rare thing, seeing a Triple G logo and the Golden Boy, because he's normally with. There's a lot of things different there. He's normally with Jordan, Triple G Promotions, and you got the Canelo
Alvarez little.
Yeah. Sam Garcia logged in, and then
what's up, Sam?
Who's on your?
Shout out to Ruben Villa the Fourth.
Who's on your shirt? Miles Davis.
Jazz musician Miles Davis.
Miles Davis in the
Huge
boxing
fan.
Nice.
Major boxing.
And he's even wearing a Lonsdale trunks.
Yeah. Looking hardcore. Yeah. Sugar Ray Robinson was his buddy, and his favorite fighter was Johnny Bratton.
All right.
I just thought that I'd toss that out there.
That's good. That's good music / boxing trivia.
Absolutely.
And we got Coach Dave is here. You're wearing your Ruben Villa the Fourth
in honor
shirt.
Of Dean Hamilton.
There you go. He had a nice win. Yesterday, right?
So I would like. Oh, Ruben was incredible, and Dean is the single best corner guy of all time.
But that was on Friday, right?
That was on Friday. So I want to know if anyone watched it. I mean, I hyped it for about 2 weeks. Did anyone watch Dean between rounds? Textbook.
Dean is
unbelievable.
Is really
better than ever.
A top cornerman, yeah.
And Ruben's really got a future.
And then we got special guest who knows a few things about Motown.
Exactly.
Jonathan Banks,
What's
representing the D on his hat in Banks training camp.
As always, definitely.
A student of Emanuel Steward. Trainer of the heavyweight champion of the world.
Manny had a great track record with heavyweight champions.
Yep.
Like he was the king of the rebuilding project. A heavyweight suffers a loss. Heavyweight needs development to get to that next level. Manny Stewart. He trained Evander Holyfield for the rematch with Riddick Bowe.
Right.
Which is the only one he won by
That's a good point, JB.
That's true. Of the trilogy.
The only one he won
was when Emanuel was training.
That's true.
That's a good point. See,
he trained Oliver McCall to dethrone Lennox Lewis.
And then
he trained Lennox Lewis and brought him back and made him into a Hall of Famer, arguably all-time great heavyweight champion. And it didn't happen overnight. It was fight by fight
it was a
by
process.
fight. Yeah, it sure was. But
and it was an honor to be there for that process.
Right.
You
saw that.
To see him start developing Lennox, that was amazing, man.
JB saw that.
Insane.
Saw that firsthand. Tell us, JB, tell us some stories about growing up in Detroit with Emanuel. Didn't you stay in one of his houses?
I stayed in the house with Emanuel, actually. My room was right across the hall from his.
Nice.
You know, and Emanuel always had this thing. I don't know why it was me, but 2 or 3 in the morning, he'd want to have a conversation. And by the time I moved out, I would get a 2 or 3 in the morning phone call. And we would just
still have a conversation.
We would sit and talk because he would want to talk, and he said he don't have a lot of people he could talk to. And we was very close, so we would sit and talk, and he would tell me a lot of ideas. That's how I always made myself accessible to him. Yeah. And no matter what, and that's how I got to learn so much from him. Mm-hmm. It's through conversation.
Right.
You know, the stuff he wanted, the things that whatever fighter he was working with was frustrating him.
Yeah.
And what he wanted to change, and what he thought about changing, stuff like that. It was like, it was an inside scoop every day.
Yeah.
You know, it was amazing. For me, it was amazing. And that's how, like, I didn't realize how much stuck to me until one day I was in Austria and I put some pads on, and I was told I had a job to do to train the fighter. And when I first held the pads, I didn't realize how much stuck to them.
I see.
And I'm like, wow, this is crazy. But I just did what I was taught and what I saw.
You had like an independent study with the master professor. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Everybody
one-on-one.
Exactly. Yeah. Everybody was able to go to class, but I was able to stay after a little longer.
Yeah.
To find out why you say that, and different things like that. So for me, it was a benefit, man. I will forever be grateful for Emanuel Stewart and his family. It was like amazing for me.
JB, when we started working with JB, Emanuel brought him to camp as a cruiserweight.
Right.
And sparring partner with Vladimir JB was one of the few guys that could hang with Vladimir, kind of figured out a few things that frustrate him. Vladimir really liked to spar with him, and then that turned into heavyweight boxing, and then that turned into actually training Vladimir with the unfortunate passing of Emanuel. Those are big shoes to fill, and I have a story. Jeannie, you want to take over?
Yes.
You got it? So
Someone says hi from Uruguay.
So there's one story that a lot of people don't realize. Maybe Dave, I'm not sure if you realize it or not. So when JB had to step in and train Vladimir, which fight was that? Was that the Marius walk?
Yeah.
Before the
Marius
Polish
walk.
guy.
I remember because we had to keep getting tall sparring partners. Yeah. Vladimir, out of all the guys I've ever worked with, Vladimir had the most sparring partners. You kept ordering more. It was like
so
10, 12, 13, 14 sparring partners.
This is crazy.
Because he always, Vladimir, unlike Vitaly, Vladimir always wanted to show that he was a heavyweight champion in the gym, in sparring. But you had...
was Tyson Fury one of those sparring partners?
Tyson was in camp. Yeah. JB can speak on this better, but he was in camp. He was never a sparring partner, but I remember Emanuel brought him to camp to show how Vladimir would train.
He'd never been to an organized camp before.
Yeah.
And me and Tyson Fury got a lot of sparring in Detroit. Because he came and my ass went sparring. I looked at him and said, yeah, okay, who about anybody? Yeah. And after that, we ended up going to Austria because Vladimir's camp. And Emanuel wanted him to be around and see how a true camp was supposed to be ran.
Yeah.
And we were sitting talking, and Emanuel said he got the mental toughness to be able to be able to champion the world.
Really?
Yeah, Emanuel called it. He said he's got the wherewithal. I mean, we were looking at him, and Tyson was a little bit scrawny still at that point.
He was skinny. He was tall and skinny that time, and he loved to sing. That's all he was doing in camp.
Yeah.
We would just listen to him. He was singing. Like, this dude's like, he's the exact same guy all the time. And he loved to sing.
And Deontay Wilder
was
Vladimir Klitschko champ. Yeah, they sparred. Yeah,
they sparred.
Quite a few rounds.
Anthony Joshua.
Yeah.
Sparred.
Joseph
Parker was in time. Emanuel wanted to get the best guys out there to push Vladimir.
Like he had these guys in there when they were up and comers and before they'd made their name.
Yeah.
I mean, like, outside of the great Muhammad Ali, you can't name too many heavyweights that some almost 75% of the sparring partners touch the world titles.
Right.
Like, you can't name one. Like, so therefore, like, a lot of people say different things about Vlad just because they don't know, but he always wanted to be around the best.
Yeah.
And we had Jarrell Miller in there a couple of times.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Didn't we have Dillian White?
Dillian White was in there.
And White was in
just about every top 10 heavyweight or 15 heavyweight you could think of.
Wow.
At that time.
They was either invited and chose not to come, or they was in.
or they were the opponent that we were training
or
for.
there's the opponent was training for.
You'd think they'd go just to be in that lush camp in Austria because it's nice,
nice,
right? It's a nice day.
It's the Staging Ward Camp 5-star resort.
Yeah, 5-star resort in the Alps.
Kitzbühel. And
that was the biggest difference.
Those guys didn't want to leave.
A lot of people thought it was something negative. Like, why would these guys do that?
Yeah.
Why would you train in? You can't train a fighter in a 5-star resort. But times have changed. We don't need to be in the alley sleeping on the concrete just to be able to stay successful. And
Vladimir's sure enough.
And both of the brothers, they're extremely disciplined. Yeah. They have a discipline about them that sets them apart from a lot of other athletes, let alone fighters. A lot of other athletes. And
with all those guys we had in camp, they all earned their money.
Yeah, exactly. They earned every penny of them.
Yeah.
You know, but to me, to see all those heavyweights come in and out of this camp and see these guys thriving in their careers, it's a pleasure for me to even see these guys like that, because you always want to see, like, you always want to know who's going to be next.
Yes.
You know, you had a lot of guys, I was around looking at these guys in Leonard's camp, and Leonard's may have one guy that was ever in this camp that became a contender. A lot of these guys just went off to do something else. I don't know.
Yeah.
They just didn't continue on with it, you know. But to see these guys continue on with their careers and doing good, I think it's awesome.
I have a boxing trivia question for you, Doug. Okay. Who's the only person in boxing history that trained a heavyweight champion for a heavyweight championship title defense, and then 1 week later competed himself in a heavyweight fight and won by knockout?
I'm gonna guess this guy standing right next to me. Right? Who else would it be?
Only one.
What are the trainers?
The only one in boxing history. That was the Marius walk fight, right? Yeah. So he was training. Can you imagine this, Dave? You've been around a lot of boxing. Can you imagine him training Vladimir, and at the same time in the same camp training himself for a fight a week later? I mean, that's that was in fact in between that. JB will remember this, that in between was Emanuel's funeral because the family delayed that until after Vladimir's fight so Vladimir could attend, so everyone could attend basically. Vladimir, Vitaly was there, JB naturally was there, and then I think the funeral was on a Tuesday.
It was on a Tuesday. The fight was November 10th, 2012. We went home November 11th. Me and Shaquille Steward worked out November 12th.
That's right, Sugar Hill was
training. And November 12th, and I think the fight, the funeral was either 13, 14. The next day, we went to Atlanta City, and my fight was November 17th. So it was a week apart, but it was a crazy situation because Vladimir sat next to me, and me and Vladimir and Vitaly walked in the funeral together. And he sat next to me. He said, "You need anything?" And I looked at him. I said, "No." He said, "You okay for the fight?" I know. I'm good. I'm just, because the hardest thing about that whole situation was holding every emotion back that you can.
Yeah.
Because you got to prepare. You got something to prepare for.
Yeah.
And a goal to accomplish. So for me, that was the most difficult part.
That week must seem like a blur.
I think that was just an emotional, because I was a few days early in Atlantic City, and the whole time you're thinking about, Emanuel passed away, you're thinking about Vladimir winning, the fight against Walk, and then the upcoming fight with JB, and it's just, I think everyone was just, I think JB was just fighting on emotions.
It was insane, man, because that was my first fighter that I trained was the heavyweight champion world, so there was a lot of pressure there, so.
Well, especially following Emanuel.
Yeah, especially following this guy. Like, come on. Like, are you gonna follow behind? Are you going on stage behind Miles Davis?
Right.
That's just the same, right? Yeah, exactly. You can't keep the crowd interested.
Yeah.
And
everyone's watching.
And that was the day I took myself off social media.
Oh,
when I got caught, because it was so much negative feedback than positive. And me personally, I've always been the type of guy. I try to surround myself with nothing but positivity. Because anything negative, you will get negative stuff regardless.
Yeah.
But the more you feed into it, the more there's going to come.
Yeah.
So I just surround myself, try to do everything I can to surround myself with positivity, so therefore it doesn't affect me. So I just said, you know what.
And then he was a big underdog. JP will remember this. Big underdog against Seth Mitchell, undefeated Seth Mitchell. They brought him in as an opponent, and figuring, okay, Seth Mitchell could beat Johnathon Banks, and that was what Johnathon started as a cruiserweight. Then he moved up to heavyweight, and then short fight week came to Atlantic City.
Yeah.
It's kind of blustery, like you said. It was November, so and it was kind of. It was.
Atlantic City was reviving their own self at the time, so they wanted to make a comeback after that devastating. Was it a hurricane? They destroyed so much of
that's right. Seeing a lot of the beach.
Yeah, so I was grateful to be a part of allowing people to come back to work. Because people weren't usually going to Atlantic City. Sure.
That's right. I remember that. I forgot about that. See, JB has a better memory than I do. In part of the casino, it was still like the water had came up to the casino, and so right on the boardwalk, it was like a foot of water that had been in there and then washed back out. But there were a lot of the restaurants were closed. Exactly. The first night we couldn't find anywhere. There was only one restaurant that was open that we had to go eat at, and I forgot that was right after that hurricane.
That was a big upset. And you took Mitchell out in the second round, if memory serves me. And Mitchell was a big
puncher.
Yeah, former football player, but this big size. I mean, he was big, and then so you got a guy coming up from cruiserweight. You're thinking, well,
Jonathan.
That's what they were. That's what they were thinking.
Yeah, Jonathan's undersized.
I had given props to Peter Nelson about helping to make that.
Yeah.
Helping to make that fight. And that's what happens when you put a boxer in against a.
Because when did you start boxing? When did you first go to the gym? So how old were you? 14. So you started as a teenager, and you had an amateur. How many amateur bouts did you have?
Not as many as most guys.
Not as many as somebody who'd start boxing at 8.
Right, exactly.
A lot of guys did.
But I had quite a few. I had at least 80, I believe.
And what were the weight classes that you boxed?
Well, one of the reasons I met Emanuel because he wanted to know who was the 47-pounder who wanted Golden Boy. And that was me. So I
the Detroit Golden.
I wanted Detroit Golden Boy. I was 14 years old, 147, and been in contact with him ever since. Eventually, I ended up joining his amateur boxing program, and the rest is history.
Was that Kronk at the time?
Yeah.
At that point?
Yeah. So once I joined the Kronk amateur boxing program, Emanuel was very hands-on with amateurs.
Yeah.
Like, you wouldn't see him for a long time because he's away at camp with somebody, whether it was Oscar or Lynn or something like that.
Right.
But when he come around, he want to know what time the amateurs coming to the gym and how many do we have. And he was in there always doing something with the amateurs, and that was one of the biggest benefits. That's the reason for me why I love working with amateurs, because it was a huge benefit. To see this guy on TV, he come back, he just put his jogging pants on and his boxing shoes on. He get in the ring with the amateurs, trying to teach us different things.
Right.
So for me, that was amazing.
If you can imagine that, training some of the top professionals in the world, and then switching gears, and then going back to guys that are just starting in the gym.
Yeah.
And we were talking about that before, about how the Kronk was a community center for kids to come, after school or to keep them off the streets. And JB just started. What's the name of your gym?
The name of the gym is Team Hands On.
Team Hands On. So JB started. That's in Detroit, and that's also to give the kids a place to go after school. Yeah. Keep them off the streets.
That's
give
good.
them some focus, some direction.
It's keeping the tradition of the Brewster Center and the Kronk.
Yeah, the Brewster Center was sadly it's closed, and half of it's still around, the other half ain't yet. But and just at one point, I hope Detroit can get back to it. They had a lot of records. They had a lot of places with foundations for a lot of different kids to go to. We always had different boys and girls clubs, but the recreation centers was the ones who saved more people and more inner city youth, because some of the best recreation centers was what we call in the hood. It's at the worst sides of town, and that was some of the best recreation centers. You get some of like guys that play basketball. You get some of the best basketball games in those rec centers.
JB made a good point. It's not just for those people that went there to the rec centers, but also for generations. If they became successful, and then that led to their children and grandchildren, and really had a big influence at the time.
Yeah, I think that's one of the keys about what the late great Emanuel Steward did. He impacted so many different generations of the legacy he laid down in his recreation center. And I just think that's one of the arts that you have when you give him the right method. It can teach you, and then your child can learn it, and your child can teach another person, and teach another person, and it can go on and so forth. And I think that was the beauty of it. He impacted so many different people, from generation after generation.
Tell the people watching about some of the sparring stories at the Kronk. Legendary sparring from the Kronk gym, in the basement at the Kronk gym.
Emanuel has so many videotapes. I mean,
that's the beauty of it. VHS tapes.
I'm watching James Toney spar Mike McCallum.
That's one of Coach's favorite fighters, James Toney.
And James Toney is he's maybe 160 at the time, maybe, because he was super small. And just to see him and Mike McCallum go at it, he had 18, 19, something like that. To see him and Mike McCallum go at it like that, it was amazing.
James was one of the most athletically gifted fighters.
Such a special talent. I mean, you won't find too many fighters that can do what James Toney did. Matter of fact, you only can find one, and that was him. And the way he did it is just like, no matter what, he was a special type of fighter. You know, and he learned so much craft in that basement, that original Punk Gym, sparring like so many top tier fighters.
And he was a high school quarterback, right?
Yeah, he was. He was. I forgot about that. James did like football.
How was his discipline back then? Or did he have any?
You know what? I think James' whole thing was, I'm gonna do what I want to do when I want to do. That's what made him a good fighter, and that's what made him a bad athlete. Because he did what he wanted to do when he wanted to do it. You know, and I think that for far as on the fight goes, that made him amazing. A clear Hall of Famer in my book.
Absolutely.
Clearly a Hall of Famer. But that's also what took a lot away from his career. Because he did whatever he wanted to do whenever he wanted to do it.
I worked with James for a few fights after the Roy Jones fight. And we all heard the stories about the Roy Jones fight where he was dehydrated and needed the infusion and everything like that. But afterwards, and he had a fiery temper, but he was always very crafty, very slick. You know, just a real athletic guy that could have gone a lot longer with the right discipline.
Just special talent. Yeah. Some talents you can look at and explain, oh, this person like James. Only thing you can say was just slap a special label on him. Is that he was that special.
Very gifted.
Defense, offense, speed. I mean, everything.
Blending it together.
Yeah, everything. It was just.
Well, he says he was born to it, but I give a lot of credit to the late great Bill Miller.
Listen, I used to, every time I leave a town or training camp, I would go home. I would go to the nursing home, physically pick up Bill Miller, put him in a wheelchair, and I would wheel him outside because like a lot of times it was like really sunny days out there. And I'm like, ask him, I'm like, Pops, you want to go outside? And Miller, of course, because he would say he ain't been outside in so long. So I'll put him in a wheelchair, we wheel him outside, and we'd sit there and just have a conversation. We just sit there and talk. And he told me long stories. His boxing mind was insane. I mean, I'm telling you. And I would go to Emanuel and say, Emanuel, I just came back from seeing Bill Miller, Emanuel told me that him and Bill Miller was close, but he didn't tell me how close. Bill Miller told me how close him and Emanuel was. Bill Miller's one who really told me that how Emanuel told Bill Miller to introduce Jackie Collin to James Toney, give her a shot. I want you to give her a shot. He the one who told me all that. And I used to come back and give Emanuel a call all the time and tell him how Bill's doing this and that. And he said, well, as soon as I get back, I'm going to have to go see him because, you know, we was always the best of friends. And so for me, just to hear those stories and knowledge that otherwise I never would have heard. Yeah. You know, you hear a lot of rumors, but I was able to hear straight from the horse's mouth. Right. And for me, it was amazing.
Who were some of the other trainers that helped out Emanuel Steward there at the Kronk Gym before Manny really?
It was
Luther Burgess was one of them.
Luther Burgess was there. Luther Burgess
the guy named Walter.
Yeah, Luther Burgess trained my former trainer. Oh. My first trainer was Alvin Blue Lewis.
Oh wow!
That was my first trainer. He fought Muhammad Ali. And that's because I started at Bruce Center. Same place Emanuel Steward started at, same place Ray Robinson trained at, same place Joe Louis trained at.
Right.
You know, and yes, I knew Bill Miller. That's how I met Bill Miller. And you had Walter Smith, who was a part of Ray Robinson team. Yeah. You know, so you had Walter Smith, you had Mr. Logan, and you had Mr. Floyd Logan, you had Lee Crenshaw. You know, those was the older guys that were down there. You had also a gentleman named Dave Shoulders used to come down there all the time. But it was to sit amongst those guys and listen to these stories and to be able to interact and talk with them, for me, purely amazing.
I have a Luther Burgess story. I was in Germany with Luther. Emanuel was supposed to come over. Who was the light heavyweight champion out of Kronk?
Is it Leon Zabarba?
Leon Zabarba, sure is.
Yeah.
And Leonzer was there with Luther Burgess. Emanuel was supposed to come over, but because the schedule was so hectic, he never made it. But so I was there when Leonzer defended his title against Mishashevsky.
Yeah,
that's when Mishashevsky first won the WBO World Championship, light heavyweight.
Yeah.
And the story was, so here's Leonzer, comes in as a champion. Everyone's treating him as a champion and walking in second, the whole thing. And then he loses the fight. And, you know, I'm from Germany. My parents are from Germany. So they loses the fight, and I'm getting ready to leave. I think I was with my cousin there. And there's Leonzer sitting on the curb. I'm like, Leonzer, what's going on? He's like, oh, I need a ride back to the hotel. They need you to ride back for him at the hotel. So I took him back. I took him back to his hotel, and I was kind of, you know, looking after him because of the Emanuel thing. And that's a boxing story when he lost to Mishashevsky. What are some of the other fighters, JB? Like Obakar was another fighter I worked with, but Oba had some legendary.
Obakar, so to me, it was an awesome talent. But Obakar is the prime example of you could have one of the best vehicles you ever driven. When you put it on the freeway too soon, you could crap out. And Michael Moore was one of the baddest light heavyweights in the history of the light heavyweight division. I mean, to be 19-0, well, I think it was 17, 18 knockouts. Yeah. It was insane. It was insane. And then he went to heavyweight. He became heavyweight champion of the world. I mean, I think he got a little, I wouldn't say too cocky, but when he fought George Foreman, I just don't think he was thinking like the regular Michael Moore was thinking. Right. Because he really thought that he was going to run through this guy. And George Foreman is one of the guys that's just plain and simple special. He was a special heavyweight.
So now, this is why I'm wearing the Madison Square Garden Roots of Fight shirt. You're in camp. You're up in Big Bear with Triple G, getting ready for the Derevyanchenko fight.
Yeah.
You would say, Doug, you'd say these are two top 5?
Yeah, top 5, top 6 middleweights. Triple G's number 1, and I think Ring Magazine has Derevyanchenko number 6.
Okay.
So he's a legit top 10 contender, an extensive amateur background, probably more fights than even Triple G has. He had a lot. Triple G a little bit higher level though. Derevyanchenko had a bunch of fights, more than 20 in the World Series of Boxing. So he had like a huge amateur career, then this semi-pro period for a few years,
right? And
then he turned pro, which is why he advanced as far as he did with just 12, 13 fights.
And arguably, Triple G is still at the top of that middleweight division. Had it not been for 2 judges, giving
he could easily be 2-0 against Canelo, or 1-0-1 versus Canelo, which would be totally fair. So he's still an elite boxer, period, of any, regardless of weight class. But he's a top middleweight. But he's going to be in with like a grinder.
It's a great test for him. And Derevyanchenko gave Danny Jacobs a tough test.
Stayed on Danny. I thought Danny had to dig really deep to win that.
Split decision loss. And Andre Rozier actually made an interesting comment. He said if he would, because he trains both guys.
Yeah.
He said if he was trained Derevyanchenko would have won that fight against Danny Jacobs. So that was an interesting comment, just like what you said, JB, about Emanuel going from Oliver McCall to Lennox. And so Derevyanchenko now, Triple G's going for 2 of his titles that he used to have, the IBF title and the IBO title. So start collecting titles again. Oh. And Canelo moved up 2 divisions. A lot of people say moved up 2 divisions not to fight Triple G.
He definitely, whatever the reason is, he definitely does not want to see Triple G this year. We'll see about next year too. That might be a struggle.
Oscar says next year. We'll see. Right. We'll see how that.
That's going to be interesting.
How that happens. But so it's in 2 weeks, maybe October 5 at Madison Square Garden.
You guys are 100% focused on Derevyanchenko.
100%.
And you've been watching Derevyanchenko's fights. Give me your scouting report on Derevyanchenko. What he does well, the flaws you see in his game, if there are any.
I think he's a crowd pleaser. He's the type of guy that when he gets to the ring, the crowd just cheering from round 1 to the end of the fight because he's the type of guy that stay in your face and make you want to make it a physical fight. So, in my opinion, we'll see if we can do that with Triple G. But if he fight Triple G the same way he fought Danny Jacobs, who knows? But that's just the way he fights. I don't see him changing no time soon. That's just the way he fights. I think he's a good fighter. I have nothing bad to say about him. The kid, you could tell, like when he comes to the ring, like the dude is just pumped and ready to fight.
And he's motivated. He's motivated to try to get one of these titles. And when we had that whole thing with the IBF, we met him a couple times, and he's a respectful guy, very focused, very motivated, and you'll see him push Triple G. But I think with Johnathon, I've seen what Johnathon sees up in camp with the sparring and everything, and I think Triple G is still at that level where no one is close to him.
I think the difference between the two really is Triple G's jab. He has. It's more than world class. It's an elite jab, and he can do so much with it. When he's in with a tough guy who's hard-headed like that, he can use the jab to control them and keep himself safe, but he can also break them down.
He's got so many knockouts that people underestimate his jab, but you look at what he did to David Lemieux, who was a big puncher. You look at how he controlled Canelo in the second fight with the jab when Canelo was.
Well, Canelo was not able to take that jab away from Golovkin. Which is one of the interesting questions going into Canelo's fight with Kovalev. Kovalev's got a really good left stick. Can he deal with Kovalev's jab better than he dealt with Triple G's jab? Because I think Triple G's jab is really the main reason you could say Triple G won the majority of those rounds. It landed consistently,
landed the most punches
over 3 minutes, whereas Canelo's here in little spots.
So that's October 5. And then we had, Angulo had a big win yesterday. We can talk about some of the previous
That's
fights.
what I call it, Ghouls for life. Fight of the weekend, right? Just like as far as like drama and entertainment. Yeah, definitely Quillen Angulo. And I was rooting for Perro. I was rooting for Angulo.
Still has some fire in him. And that was, if you remember back when Triple G was the WBA champion and Quillen was WBO champion, there were some people trying to convince people that Quillen was on the same level as Triple G.
Yeah,
but
I know.
That sorted itself out pretty quick.
Quillen was with Golden Boy when Richard Schaefer was CEO, and Al was like the main advisor to most of the talent, and they had no interest in fighting.
Triple G wanted to fight all those champions at that time. Sergio Martinez, Quillen, Stern. No one was there to be found. At least no one to negotiate any type of deal with. So.
And how about Ryan Garcia this week?
Ryan Garcia signed a big deal, big long-term deal. I think that actually worked in his favor, that whole Duno situation, because I think he was able to renegotiate his deal. And he got a long-term.
I'm trying to tell you people's comments.
Multi-fight deal.
You want to say one comment? Okay.
Sweet Science says, Angelo Salka, ask Dougie. And he's been trying to ask this.
He asks silly questions all the time. He's saying Angulo, Rod Salka. Like, that's what should be next. I know who Rod Salka's fighting next. He's fighting somebody. I forget. He is. Rod Salka's still fighting. He is fighting somebody, like some up-and-comer or whatever. I just recently talked to the guy's trainer at Churchill.
Okay.
Oh, well. I said, okay, that's a guaranteed win for your guy.
So, Johnathon, who do you like in the heavyweight rematch?
Oh, yeah, that's a good question. Andy Ruiz and AJ. You're familiar with AJ.
Right, well, when me and Triple G went to the Canelo and Danny Jacobs fight, Andy Ruiz sat next to me and talked to him. I told him, I said, listen, man, if you go out there and do what you're supposed to do, you'll be next heavyweight champion of the world. He said, okay. You know, we had a couple more words. Told him a few things. We talked back and forth. But I think Andy Ruiz is, he's a good fighter. And take nothing away from him. But my personal opinion, skill-wise, Anthony Joshua is a better fighter. You know, I think he's a better fighter when it comes to skill versus skill. I think Anthony Joshua can do more, and I think he's just overall a better fighter. I mean, throughout history, you see the heavyweights, any weight class fighter who compete in the Olympics and get a gold medal. It's just something about the background of the gold medalist.
Yeah.
I mean, you won't be able to name 3 gold medalists that was able to gain a gold medal, Not alone heavyweights. They gained a gold medal. They lost the title. Was never able to come back.
Right.
You know, it's just something special about the gold medals.
Yeah.
And in my opinion, you can never underestimate the gold medals because they're there for a reason.
Special
you call it gold for a reason. And throughout history in boxing, not just in the United States, but history in boxing, the people that won gold medals, it was hard to put away. Like you go Rome 1960 with Muhammad Ali. You know, although he fought, if it wasn't for the draft situation, I don't think those last years would have even happened. But look how hard he was to put away. Gold medalist.
Floyd Patterson.
George
first
Foreman,
heavyweight to regain the title was a gold medalist.
Still. George Foreman was 45 years old. Winning the heavyweight championship with the West. It's just something. It's just something throughout the history, and then go to modern day. Andre Ward, look the way he destroyed Kovalev. Now people said they want about Kovalev, but Andre Ward was your height, and Kovalev was way up there in comparison. Before that fight happened, and doing that fight, the heights changed. Andre never stopped growing, and Kovalev just stayed the same. And Andre kept going higher and higher. And the higher he went, the more he started to hurt Kovalev. And I'm still a fan of Kovalev. I think he's a good fighter. I'm still a fan of him. But that gold medal is just something extra special about him that you just can't take for granted.
So who do you like in the fight?
I said this before. Number one, you can flip a coin. Because either you can have Canelo trying to stop Kovalev with body shots, or you can have Kovalev catch Canelo with a good punch and stop him. Because physically he's stronger than Canelo. He's bigger and he's stronger. But Canelo is such a tester. He go test everything about you. And I do believe he's gonna try to come in and try to stop him.
Canelo learned a lot from those two Triple G fights.
Yes, I think he'll come in and try to stop him.
Dave, I have the same opinion as Dave. What's your opinion on that fight, Dave?
It's not even a close fight. Canelo kills him. I think mentally he's got him. And I think it's a great fight for both of them, though. I think it's a real good fight.
Biggest fight for Kovalev's career.
And how do you like
his profile?
And now they're the undercard.
It's really close now.
What's your read on that?
I favor Canelo, but I think there's going to be some difficulty.
I think it's more competitive than
because of his height, because of his reach, because of the jab, and because of Buddy McGirt. I'm not 100% sure that the quick turnaround is a negative thing for Kovalev.
I don't know.
Because their whole camp, they basically have like 4 weeks of like serious camp. And it doesn't allow him to use himself up in sparring. You know, they have to be very focused on the strategy. And I think that's how Kovalev has to look at it. He can't go in there and say, well, I'm a bigger man, I'm just going to go and bum rush him and wipe out this guy. Because Canelo's very proud, he's very strong, and he's very crafty. He's gotten better and better as an inside fighter. So I think really they should try to keep him on the outside. Keep him at the end of the jab, bust him up with the jab. Just have that jab be the main weapon, and not get greedy.
Dad.
I just think that you got a question.
Yeah. iSweet Science.
You're a big man,
iSweet Science says, who wins Rances Barthélemy or have Javier Fortuna?
I don't know. It shouldn't happen. It's a terrible matchup.
I just think Canelo's going to be too fast. He'll get under that jab and hit the body. But it's an interesting fight. You know, you can say he's moving up 2 divisions.
The thing is, Canelo, one punch that has bothered Canelo throughout his career has been the jab.
I've always
when it's a world-class jab, it's got to be a good jab.
If I was covering Kovalev, I'm going to think it have to be a good jab to keep him at bay. Because Canelo, he wants to engage.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna say Kovalev, go engage him. I don't understand. Like make it a dog fight. Bigger, supposed to be stronger.
Yeah, supposed to.
All you got to do is let your hands go and turn into a dog fight. Who's going to win in the shootout?
Fans.
Who you pick
everyone thinks Kovalev is real fragile, like he's just gonna break. And you might be right. Like, don't.
If you get into a shootout,
Right.
who's gonna gain the most out of it? Kovalev or Canelo? My opinion, I think Kovalev is going to gain the most out of it.
That's the way
because you cannot match that power unless he got a juice backpack on. Yeah. He ain't gonna be able to match the power of Kovalev.
Well, I see it
if
going,
you get into a shooter.
Yeah, I see Canelo in about 8 rounds. I think it's a real good fight. I think it's a great fight for everybody. And I do like Kovalev, and having Buddy McGirt's a huge plus.
Buddy's really
he's good. So Dougie just met with McGirt and James.
Yeah. James is working with fighters. McGirt's got a bunch of guys from Kazakhstan. With 3 undefeated prospects from Kazakhstan, all just absorbing everything. They have a work ethic. They're learning English.
Before we bought Triple G to HBO, or actually
Kazakhstan. Who cares?
Nobody knew where Kazakhstan was.
Listen, you got a bunch of guys from Kazakhstan, and they're with Klimas. So Eglis Klimas brought him over to Buddy McGirt. Kovalev's there. And then you got a bunch of dudes from Uzbekistan in Coachella, Indio area, training with Joel Diaz, and they're going to be kicking some ass. I mean, there's a lot of competition here in America from just the rest of the world, and I'm saying like from 140 pounds through light heavyweight. There's a bunch of really good fighters in that part of the world.
So Jonathan, how do you see the Ruiz AJ fight going?
If I was in AJ's corner, I would have him box Ruiz, like you said.
Kovalev should box Canelo. Yeah, don't get greedy.
And I think
AJ should stay on the outside.
On the Kovalev part, I would tell him go get greedy and go get this guy. Fight him from bell one. Make it into a hard fight. Because if he can't punch with you, what goes? The only thing he got to do is outbox you.
Right.
If he can't punch with you.
That was a great counterpunch.
But
he likes that. Canelo likes it when guys come to him. He slips and counters.
It's the exact opposite with Joshua Ruiz. This dude can't fight with you, so I'll box him. He can't box with you. His arm's too short. He cannot box with you. So box him for about 6 rounds, then go in for the kill.
That's when Joshua.
I thought that's what Joshua was going to do in the first fight.
That's when he got caught. When he hurt him, when he knocked him down, and he came in.
The moment he tried to jump on him after that knockout.
But if you heard, if Joshua was coming back like this, coming back to jab him, you heard his corner and saying, "Go inside," and he went inside. And that's how he started getting caught. I'm like, why would you tell this man that?
That's bad.
Like, I didn't understand that. I'm listening to him. I'm like, why would you say that? And Joshua did it.
We were there.
And I don't think AJ was mentally prepared for that fight either. He never thought he'd have a fight like that.
I think everything that went wrong
they're asking you.
AJ did, like for the environment, first time in the United States, all that stuff.
They said
please. That went wrong.
Just like me, she wants to answer. Every idiot.
I sweet science. Okay, there's someone else too. Okay. There's all they're saying is stuff in a different language, but they're saying a bunch of stuff, and I don't even know.
Russian?
I don't know. But yeah, I see. Lawrence Olkey versus Sefer Safari. Who wins? Please ask your father.
I'll go with Lawrence. That's a cruiserweight.
Do you have a couple of questions, Dave? You want to do that on this segment? Or
I think actually we want to. I think we did it. I think having here, Jonathan's incredible.
Yeah. A lot of boxing knowledge. A lot of people don't know the depth of Baby's boxing knowledge, his commentating skills. And
all we have to do is say, that Klitschko is one of the brightest guys, not just the boxer, brightest guys. Picks you to be his trainer, and you've never trained anyone before. There's something there. So.
I was just talking. I was in Big Bear, and we went to a friend of ours' restaurant who was actually the videographer for Klitschko. Tropicali, Big Bear, the best restaurant, not only in Big Bear but in the West. Tropicali local, right? Yeah. And Michael Sterling Eaton, shout out. Michael pointed out. So JB, not only, if you look at his resume, he's a student of Emanuel Steward, trainer of one of the best heavyweight champions that we've had, second longest run in championship history. So he trained Vladimir Klitschko, trained the best female boxer in boxing, Cecilia Brækhus, and now trains arguably the best middleweight champion.
Future Hall of Famer, no doubt, and one of the best middleweight title reigns in history. One of the longest. The only middleweight champion to reign longer than Triple G was Bernard Hopkins.
Okay, that's right. And he tied Bernard's 20 title defense record.
Yeah. We have a question.
He's an all-time great.
What's the question?
We learned something new. Today. That the year that Vladimir Klitschko won the gold medal, 1996, was the year that JB started boxing.
Oh.
Think about that. I didn't know that.
You know, when Triple G was changing trainers and we were speculating who it was going to be, we never thought of you.
Nobody did.
I mean, not once
asking me.
Yeah.
Nobody did.
And it's so obvious, too. Like, the moment it was announced, we're like,
yeah, what we were thinking about. Yeah. Hey, just one thing. We want to wish happy birthday to Netta Hulaby.
Happy birthday, Netta.
It's her birthday, Netta. Oh, yeah. Happy birthday, Netta.
Oh.
NPR.
There's a question.
Birthday, Netta.
The person says...
And how should JB drive back to Big Bear?
Well, JB's a great driver.
You can tell he's real calm. And he doesn't do social media.
Drive calm, let everyone in.
So do you like the crazy drivers out there?
I never had an issue driving in LA. You know, New York is the problem, but I never had an issue driving in LA because I think you got crazy people driving throughout the world. So I never had an issue, but going up to Big Bear, it's a different task, but I love it.
Yeah, do you?
I love the drive because
You're
it's
the only
so
guy.
quiet, especially when you go at night. It's quiet.
Oh, man.
Every once in a while, you get the person that's riding your tail going around the curve because he wants you to pull over.
Yeah.
But when they start riding my bumper, I go slower and I don't pull over. I'm not going slow. I'm slowing down.
I have a question.
That's how he is driving up Big Bear.
I take my
There's
foot
a
off
question.
the gas, and I just go slow as I can, as slow as I want to go.
There's a question. So it says...
What you gonna do?
They keep honking.
There's a question.
They honk back. They land on the horn. I lay on my horn.
Hey, really, it's an honor to have you.
Hey, man, listen, the pleasure's all mine.
You came onto the show, imparted some knowledge from the Kronk Boxing Gym, from Emanuel Steward, from the Klitschko days.
It's a pleasure for me to be here, man.
Two questions.
Oh, and one thing I forgot, he's also training Ali Akhmedov at the same time as Triple G.
Good.
They got sparring partners. Ali's at 168, Triple G's actually at 168.
Akhmedov has an opponent for October 5th?
He has an opponent. We haven't officially announced it, but he'll be on the undercard.
He's definitely on it.
He's on the undercard, so JB's training Ali Akhmedov. That'll be a great fight on the undercard. We should make the announcement of the undercard this week. Brian Ceballos should be back on the undercard.
Excellent.
Madrimov should be on the undercard. So it'll be a nice undercard.
Akhmedov is future 68-pound world champion.
Two questions.
He's seeing the advantage that these guys have is not only working with Johnathon, but also seeing Triple G in action, training with Triple G, and seeing how hard it was. Like when Emanuel brought the guys into Vladimir's training camp, you see how hard the champion trains, and you see why he's at that level. So all these sees
Triple G's got that Bernard Hopkins thing where he likes to guide guys.
Yes, exactly. That's the reason that changed the course of
my
life when I was 16 years old. Emmanuel took me to Lindsville training camp. I was training for the Golden Gloves at the time. No, we're training for the Packers. And Emmanuel had to train Leonard. Y'all come on with me. And we got up. Leonard woke us up early. Leonard's one of these people woke us up early one Saturday. He said, "Hey, Leonard wants y'all in the gym." In the gym? Like, well, we got to go to the gym for. I thought it was Saturday. And Emmanuel said, "Okay, y'all come over. Leonard wants y'all in the gym. He wanna work out with you." And that changed everything. Leonard's got it off face. He said, "Put your hands like this. Let's do this. Let's do that." Just to interact with him, being the heavyweight champion of the world, and I'm 16 years old, looking at him like, man, this is nuts.
Yeah.
It was crazy. We went on. I think about 60% of us went to that tournament, we all won.
Yeah, you had that confidence.
Right, it was a life changer for me.
All right, Jeannie, ask the question.
Okay,
real quick.
the questions. There's multiple questions.
All right.
Okay, so it says Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. versus Yuri Boy Campos. Who wins? And another person.
Oh, Yuri Boy boxes his ass off against Yuri Boy.
And another person says, Tom, are you still working with Chocolatito and Dienas? Are they still fighting? What? I don't know.
Chocolatito is training, and they should be making an announcement, I think, pretty soon for his next fight.
He's coming back soon.
He's one of the most fan-friendly, most popular fighters in boxing. Even though he was at 115 pounds, we shed the spotlight on his career with the Superfly shows. He was always a great addition to the Triple G shows. Arguably, at that time, the two recognized pound-for-pound fighters fighting on the same show. And a lot of great things to say about
they're crowd pleasers. Yeah. So I'm going to keep him in the ring rankings. He hasn't fought in a year. But
he had that one injury.
He had an injury. He's supposed to come back in December. So I'm going to try to do that.
So we're going to sign off then, everyone. Dave, for Doug.
Adios, be happy.
Thank you, Producer Jeannie.
How do you wake up, Dave? Either positive or very positive?
Dave wakes up and does the Blair Cobb's.
Woo! That's all I think about is Blair Cobb.
That's what wakes me up in the morning.
We'll see. We're going to sign off. Tune in October 5 to The Zone. Triple G versus Derevyanchenko.
Oh my gosh.
See Ali Akhmedov on that show also, and it'll be a great fight.
You'll see Jonathan Banks
at Madison Square Garden. You'll see Jonathan Banks in the fight.
So it says, last question: Horn versus Angelo.
Oh, that's a good